This is Jeff Mucci from RCR Wireless News. We're in Palo Alto today meeting with Dan Geiger, who's Senior Marketing Director for BroadHop. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Nice to be here.
Bandwidth management has become a major topic for mobile operators. Tell us a little bit more about what your company does to help companies manage their bandwidth.
Well, it's interesting that that as the resources have become more constrained, as networks have had more issues about providing bandwidth, primarily in the data space, we've seen burgeoning demand for ways to mitigate bandwidth and to use it in more optimal ways.
Right.
And so our space is called policy management, and we provide rules that interact with on a customer and a type of service and a network basis, and interact with the management of bandwidth so that Dan Geiger's traffic would be prioritized in a certain way based on Dan Geiger's requirements. And or a certain class of customer would get a certain type of a certain service, for instance, would be prioritized over another one, such as real-time services like voice and video over web crawling.
So when you refer to what is BroadHop,
Right.
Do you refer to it as a policy management company or a bandwidth management company? How do you characterize the company?
Well, I would call it, the space is policy management. We have always had a very strong affinity with services and applications. So I would say it's policy management with a bias towards delivering revenue-generating services. So that's what I would call it. The bandwidth side is one aspect of what we do, and it's clearly bandwidth management and the formalization of providing a certain service is something we've done, for years. But in addition to that, as we get more into this, as providers become more aware of customer experience and quality of service, we're also getting somewhat more. We can slice and dice some of the technology and the services and the bandwidth so that customers get a different type of experience. And so I would say, in short, policy server with a bias towards services and applications.
So who are your customers?
Okay, our customers are telecoms.
Okay.
And so it's telecoms who are largely doing data traffic, and everyone is, and it could be mobile. One of the big traffic drivers, well, clearly smartphones, but over the past year what's happened is that we've also gone into mobile broadband,
right,
which is the buzzword for PCs with cards that are mobile and trying to download DSL and cable type of speeds over the air.
Got it.
Yeah.
So if I'm a carrier, how do I procure your service? Is it software? Is it hardware? Where does it sit in my network?
It's software and hardware. We sell it as software. It clearly runs on servers. So it would sit in your network operations centers. It sits between the operational support software on one side and the network elements themselves, the radio, the cell towers, the SS7 network, the other the SMS type of capabilities and boxes that are in the network itself. And what we do is we work as an intermediary between what's promised to a customer based on their service profile and so forth, and what can actually be delivered by a network element. So, for instance, one use case that we could do would be there's a baseball game and everybody fires up their iPhone at the same time, or their smartphones, and the network gets a hit, and we could identify congestion area. We could interactively tell each customer, you're in a high congestion area. You as a premium customer are going to get the best service possible, or you as a non-premium customer will get best effort, but if you want to upgrade or use some reward points, you could do that. So we could interactively manage the network on the fly.
So I could choose to pay $3 at that moment to get access to premium content.
Right, so you could see Albert Pujols hit a home run again.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
right.
fascinating.
It is interesting.
So tell me about the history of the company. Where was it founded, and how did you end up in this particular space?
It was founded in 2003, and the company has focused on, I'd say it got into the space largely through, we have a history of working in telecom in specific areas of industry, hotel, telecom management, broadband management.
Right.
And in the early 2003 or so, mobile, there started to be requirements for mobile management as well. Mm-hmm. And we largely began working in bandwidth management for broadband, tying them also to mobile bandwidth management, and largely in emerging markets, because most of the pricing models in the developed markets are largely pay all you can eat, or there's some pay as you go, but it's there's a certain amount that's believed to be paid each month. Whereas in the emerging markets, there's a requirement to build revenues based on incremental services that could be delivered. And so in the emerging markets, they came to us saying, how can we deliver a little bit more service and get 5 more rupees for that service a month, or whatnot? And we would help them figure out ways of carving up their available bandwidth and their services to provide them for customers on a pay-as-you-go basis, which is pretty complex stuff. But as we developed that capability, we grew and have been able to move into developed world as well. And as bandwidth becomes constrained, we are more and more policy management is being deployed and required.
So what percent of your revenues come from international versus domestic markets?
I'd say at this point it's probably 70% international and 30% domestic, or what I'd call first world or developed world.
Okay.
And I'd say that that's probably representative of the industry at large. And about half of what we do is broadband or fixed line, and half would be mobile.
And recently you raised some additional venture capital.
Right.
Maybe tell us a little bit about what that's going to mean in terms of your growth over the next year or two.
The company was privately funded for years and self-sustaining and profitable, and was run fairly conservatively from that point of view to develop the technology, develop the customer base. And about 6 months ago, as this market clearly began to truly expand, the founders of the company assumed that we had what we think is the leading technology in the world in this space, and how we could expand it. And so what we've done is we created our first round of funding, and are building out a field force and sales force and some marketing capabilities. So therefore, I can be with you today to talk about this, and we need to get the word out about what we have. So
over the next 12 months, what do you see as the biggest opportunity? What do you see as the biggest challenge?
Well, we've, about a year and a half ago, we put, and part of this funding probably helped towards this, I'd have to say, is we put together a Tiger team of some of the best telecom and IT developers around. And they were, some of them BroadHop people, and some of them people from large, well-known telecom companies, and put together a capability, a new product set called the Quantum Network Suite. And it is truly the merging of the best of telecom practices with the best of IT practices. And so for us, what we're providing is an open framework to provide policies. So generally, policies, just like anything in telecom, delivery of these services take time. And the faster you can bring things to market with the least effort, the better the service would be. And so with an open framework with IT practices like using the Spring frameworks or Eclipse, for instance, we're finding service development times and policy development times to be about 1/10 of what they've been in the past. So for us, we're seeing an acceleration of service delivery. So that to us is a great opportunity.
Right.
I'd say the biggest impediment to that is probably what I'd say would be government involvement. Not that I'm anti-government, but there is in the U.S. and in the developed world, there's quite a bit of confusion around what fair use means. Right. And how we can provide, how everyone can get access, but everyone can also get quality access. And with limited resources, something has to give. Sure. So there's quite a bit of discussion about that in industry and within government, which is if you give everybody equal access and bandwidth is highly constrained, then everybody gets poor quality. And is that the way you want to do it? And policy can come in and sort of help segment that and do that a little bit more, quite a bit more intelligently.
Well, good luck sorting that out.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Dan,
that is an issue.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Very good.